Hello everyone, welcome to Better Tech. So today we have Eilon with us. Hello Eilon, how are you?
Hello there. Good morning.
It's great to have you on Better Tech today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Eilon, before we get started, can you tell us a bit more about yourself, about your background, about your professional journey, and where are you these days and what you are up to?
Sure. My journey started more years than I would like to admit. So back in the previous century, I started as a software engineer. So I'm a software engineer by training, and then transformed into a product role back. That was also more than 20 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say. I'm now the chief product officer at Gong. Before that, which also one of the founders, had a previous company before, which we had sold back in 2013, I think, and have been kind of driving the Gong product team for what is it, 7 years now.
Awesome. So I have seen that you have been mentoring a lot of startups. Generally, in Microsoft and other places, incubators, etc. as well. So how you are seeing the overall startups? Coming up and how the product development is going. What's the general trend in your opinion?
Yeah, so when I've done this a lot, it was actually right before starting Gong. I was in sabbatical, which I recommend to everybody. So I was out of here. I didn't have tons of commitments. So I basically spent time with tons of startups. It helped startups. I hope I helped them a little bit. And then I also got to see the ecosystem a little, kind of, and learn what people are doing. That keeps changing. So I think 2 or 3 years ago, every company would kind of raise, I don't know, $50 million before they had an idea. I think now times are a little bit more realistic, so it's a little bit harder to get money. We're still seeing startups that are ranging from anything to everything. Obviously, AI is a big thing, but and numerous things. So hopefully, it doesn't look like the startup scene is actually, it seems to still be doing well, which is a good thing because innovation is always there to be found.
Yeah, so back in the day, like a few months ago, even, it was like a common saying that if you have a good idea, you can get like a few $1 million on a PowerPoint.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to have seen this back in 2000. I've actually raised money right before the bubble collapse, so it was a kind of news from the other side, and this is a cycle thing. So I don't think it was sane maybe a year or 2 years ago. I think right now it's maybe a little bit too depressed, but it's a normal cycle of business.
So how are you seeing the startup ecosystem now? People are talking a lot about recession. It's not going to cover up or everything is going to be doomed. What are your thoughts on that?
No, people are always looking for solutions. So my specialty is not specialty, but sort of general domain where I kind of is business to business. I don't know anything about business to consumer. I think consumers are going to consume regardless of, so the economy less sensitive, especially if it's kind of ad based and whatnot. The For business to business, businesses are always going to buy software that helps them. And again, I'm a software person, so I don't know anything about other domains. But the bar is higher. So maybe if 2 years ago people would buy something that would help somebody, I don't know, save 10 minutes of their time and pay an arm and a leg for this, now they're sort of justifying the spend. So they want to see that there's some impact, call it ROI, call it value, call it meaningfulness, more cautious. And then also want to see that actually the stuff that they buy gets used. So if you buy 100 licenses for S software, they're going to check in the end of the year that you're using 100 or more, most of the 100 and not 30. And if you're using 30, they're gonna kind of remove the rest. Kind of normal business practice.
So your latest venture where you are working these days is Gong. So can you tell us a bit more about that? What is Gong, how it's different, and how you ended up uh, about the product idea?
Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, Gong is a leader in a category that's called revenue intelligence. And what it does is basically our unique technology can pick up all of the conversations that revenue professionals do with their customers, salespeople, customer success, service, professional services, all of these people. And we understand the emails, the text messages, the phone calls, the video call, everything using AI, machine learning. And it basically replaces an old world where people thought each of those people are gonna type whatever they did into a CRM system, which never happened and never will happen. And that therefore organizations did not have visibility or data to even run their business based off. So once we install the system, we kind of collect all of this information and we start, first of all, creating visibility in the organization. So at a heartbeat, if we're selling to IBM, I can look up when was the last time we spoke with IBM about pricing, find the 30 seconds of discussion and listen to it. And then we build higher order applications, pipeline review, how do I know what's happening, get risk, forecasting, next best action, what does the system recommend to salespeople to do, insights, what's working, what's not working, all of these things. But the nice thing about it, we're reinventing the whole sales stack based on reality, based on real data. So every single thing that a sales organization does looks completely different when you have the underlying knowledge of what's really happening versus, hey, I think this deal is going to close, and then there's not much you can do about it.
Sure. So, I mean, you touched upon revenue intelligence. So, do you think it really matters for companies who are like selling their software products or products in general to others? I mean, is it going to matter, or I mean, our gut feeling takes precedence over anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, Gong has been, we're 1,300 people now. We've been one of the fastest growing software companies worldwide, number one in highest customer satisfaction products. Obviously, kind of people like it, but it's not just liking, they can measure outcomes. So for example, onboarding time shrinks dramatically because suddenly new people see what's going on very, very kind of much faster. Strategic decisions. So now there is a little bit of a recession and you want to know how customers are reacting. So yes, we're seeing decisions being driven by this. Early detection of risk. The system is going to flag, say, hey, this deal is at risk because of X, Y, and Z, and you can save it. So all of these things, most of them are measurable. Decision making is not measurable. So CEO making a decision, super strategic, not measurable, but most of the day-to-day stuff, can I sell more? Can I reduce the sales cycle size? Can I increase the customer satisfaction? All of these are easily measurable. You put Gong and you suddenly see all of those dials moving.
So at Gong, you must be working with a lot of startups. You must be working with a lot of enterprises as well. So what sort of, I mean, key use cases of our AI you have seen in the enterprises? Do you think it's valuable for them? Do you think like it's just a buzzword that enterprise has to follow and it does not add any value? What are your thoughts?
There are multiple classes of AI because I think AI is underlying technology. It's like asking, for example, like, where does Wi-Fi help, right? So Wi-Fi is going to help you in lots of things. I mean, this is now commonplace, but any new technology can be applied in multiple areas. And my belief has been all along that AI in itself, just a box that says, I'm going to do some AI model and inference and whatnot, is not like in itself. I mean, first of all, I don't know that there's like the core technology itself is sort of a little bit commoditized. And then I think the main beneficiaries of it are the big platforms, the Amazons and Googles of the world who provide you the infrastructure and the Microsoft. I think people who build on top of it, my belief is like a Gong, is how do you kind of translate the AI into business value? So, does Gong understand the conversation? Well, better than probably anybody else. But we have focused our attention to revenue organizations so we can go back and say, hey, this deal is at risk because this email was sent and said that. And our system is not going to give you this insight if it were an education class because there is no risk in it. So the core understanding technology is great. And again, I think we have the best one around in many of those areas. But if you don't apply it to where you can actually drive business impact, then it's very hard to sort of create value because otherwise it's going to be like, yeah, there's summaries or things that, how do you translate them into sort of some benefit?
So, I mean, in enterprises or other companies in general, what do you think could be some of the challenges in adapting AI into the mix?
There's multiple challenges because I think anybody can take an AI off the shelf or even run a model on some like infrastructure and just run it. There's, I think, one tactical challenge and one strategic challenge. The tactical challenge is how do you get the right data into the system, and it needs to be meaningful data because otherwise, you cannot run modern AI, which is essentially machine learning, without the right data and the cleansed data. So it's a process of saying, hey, I got the right data. Can I bring it in? Can I bring it in systematically? Can I make sure it's accurate? Do I know what the objective function is, and so on? So that's one challenge. Everybody in the industry has it. There's a labeling and there's data cleansing and data pipelines and data engineers and all sorts of stuff around that. I think the biggest challenge, the bigger challenge, is how do you kind of drive the outcomes, the insights, call it, or whatever the the AI outputs into how do you put it in the hands of the right people? And I'll give you an example. If it's AI for optimizing ad banners, that's you don't care, right? It's just like you put the right banner, you make 20% more money, whatever. But this is like more of a traditional optimization thing. If it's more of a modern stuff that touches people, is if you only give data point to one person, they're still going to have to do a lot of work to sort of understand what this means. Like, oh, the system recommends that you do X. Okay, so how do I drive this? How do I operationalize it? I think the bigger challenge is how do you get the right insights to the right people? And I'll give you an example. In the Gong world, understanding that the deal is at risk is relatively easy. The hard part is how do we build an application that lets managers review, inspect the whole pipeline and pay attention to the risky deals, know what the risk is, and give them the platform to coach the people to fix this risk. Or a different way, finding out how people are handling conversations is kind of easier than building a whole system that lets people see it and act on it and measure the improvement and so on. So I think it's all about the business applications and how do you drive it to the key people and not just to analysts, and not just in the few use cases where it can actually close the loop and just do a self-driving car that does it on its own. Because most AI applications are not self-driving. They involve people somewhere along the way.
So essentially, I mean, the common concept really is that people mix up AI and machine learning with each other. So they are going to say that AI and machine learning is probably the same thing. But in reality, I mean, we basically make the machine learn for it to become artificially intelligent. That's what the sequence really is. So what do you think? I mean, what's the importance of machine learning in sort of making machines or computers artificially intelligent? I mean, are they related? Are they independent? Are they, I mean, in an order? They can be run in sequence. They should be run in parallel. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And, I'm old enough to sort of have been through a few cycles of this. And I think last century, and I think it was 1960s, even before I was born, and I think again in 1980s, there's been discussions around AI. AI was invented, the term was invented back in the previous century. And it was had different names, expert systems and blah, blah, blah. And I think some of it has been successful, like chess, for many years, it plays better than the world champion. But in most areas, the whole idea of like programming a system to be an expert was just too expensive or impractical. You could do it in very, very few cases. I think the big thing that happened in AI wasn't the vision. The vision was always there. They always wanted to have self-driving cars. It was the understanding and the technology that allows us to sort of not program the system to be intelligent, but actually learn from examples. So this is machine learning. Machine learning, the whole idea is you bring tons of data, and the internet helped collect all of this data, and now there's billions of web pages and trillions of, data points, and essentially learn. And what people realize is essentially, the system doesn't have to be fundamentally smart. If you give it enough data and build the right architecture, it learns so much that it's going to be as smart as it gets. So technology-wise, 2022, this is how almost everybody does AI. Who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, there's going to be another direction. You don't need to learn. You can, do something else. But right now, everybody's going to say, machine learning, well, first of all, is the leading thing. And then it's very hard to envision a mechanism that's fundamentally different to getting to quote unquote intelligent systems.
So what really, I mean, people are talking about these days is that machines are going to replace humans. I mean, in coming days, everything is going to be so much AI driven, and it would be machines everywhere. So what do you think to that idea? I mean, you think that humans will still be needed? I mean, or their replacement is inevitable? What do you say to that?
First of all, I hope that I have I have a little bit of time before my retirement, so hopefully it doesn't happen soon. But more seriously, yeah, I think people over kind of dramatize the idea of replacing people. Yeah, always. I mean, believe it or not, again, I'm old enough so that I used to have. I worked in an office in a software company where we would get like physical mail delivered to our boxes, to like our offices, to our kind of desks. And I think the person who's responsible for this, I don't know if it was a mailman or a mail woman or somebody, I think that person lost their job because there's email. I don't think people regret the fact that we don't have physical mail people delivering at office, right? Not physical words. So some jobs get completely become redundant. But I think most knowledge jobs are here to stay, and I think where what AI does is makes them more efficient. First of all, it automates all of the mundane tasks, so you don't have to sort of what is it like? If you're a physician, you don't have to take a photo, go and develop it, and look at the print it. You can actually do it 30 seconds, and the system is going to tell you, hey, look here, and you're still going to have to do the judgment call. So there is an element of oh, my cat here is meow in the background. Not sure if the audience can hear this. This is part of non-AI. So the essence is it's not replacing people. It's helping them do their job right, giving them guidance, simplifying their lives. They come home, have more free time and less burden on their day-to-day life.
So, I mean, AI, as we say, I mean, it's really evolving, and there are going to be like several breakthroughs while we are on this journey. So, what would you say to that? I mean, you have seen some breakthroughs already happening, or you think that it is to come yet, or what do you think?
Oh, there's breakthroughs all the time. Well, actually, one of the reasons we started Gong back 7 years ago was the realization that in our world, speech to text and natural language understanding is going to go through a revolution. It did.
Mhm.
It's a good thing. About 5 to 10 years ago, there's been a revolution in image recognition. I think right now, image recognition is, I drive into sort of parking lot and the system recognizes my plate number. I don't need to do anything about it. So that's, I want to say, a solved problem. Not like everything can be recognized, but it's pretty kind of solved. Natural language understanding, which is what we deal with at Gong, has gone through a huge kind of shift. So first of all, understanding stuff, meaning, oh, is this a question? Is this happy? Is this sad? 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that was a hard problem. It was 80% accurate. Now you're going to get to systems that can do it at 100% accuracy. And this is like superhuman, better than a normal person. I think the latest thing is both natural language synthesis, what's called NLG, natural language generation, and
Mhm.
then same with images. So systems can now write, author sentences, sometimes paragraphs, sometimes stories. GPT-3 has sort of been publicized as I'm going to write like a sci-fi story. But I think even if you take the press hype out of the equation, just the ability to create texts that are meaningful and readable allows you to do lots of things. I can kind of send you a summary. I can come up with some help you write text and so on. And the latest thing is the same with a platform called DALL-E, which is the same for images. So I can go in and say, create an image that looks like a Picasso painting of, I don't know what it is, two
Mm.
software engineers coding on the moon. So it's going to look like two software engineers coding on the moon, Picasso style. And, basically kind of revamping the whole idea of, what does it mean to generate images for business, for pleasure, for other things.
So, I mean, you have been working in the AI space for a good deal now. So, what are some of the key takeaways? I mean, you have taken from your overall journey within this domain.
Yeah, there's several ones. One is the key one is sort of we touched on this a little bit, is never focus on the core technology, but more like where is the business impact? Because AI is in 9 out of 10 cases a piece of the equation. It's like, yes, you can detect spam using AI, but if it's an unknown recipient, maybe you can put it in a separate folder to begin with, and just like not even use AI or whatever. So I think the key is how do you drive impact? What pieces of it is technology? What pieces of it is applications? And what pieces of it is just business logic that people need to have customized to them? That's one. I think that's maybe even sort of the primary one. Another one is for companies who build AI applications is not just focus on processing existing data. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is if you're running a system that takes the company's financial data, is going to predict what its revenue is going to be next year, it's a cool application. You can sell this software, people are going to like it. But eventually the model itself, the AI itself, the engines are nowadays, good or bad, a commodity. So some other company is going to be able to do the same thing and some other company is going to do the same thing. And it's very hard to differentiate that, well, I'm going to do this 70% accurate. I'm going to do it 71% accurate, 72. The knowledge is nowadays a commodity. So it's very hard even for the Googles and Facebooks of the world to come up with a technology that's radically different. It's all how you set it up. So I think if you're building a company that does AI, is one option is differentiate on how you apply the AI, which is what we talked about. But the other thing is how do you also manage and own maybe some of the data. So in the case of Gong, we've taken a lot of effort to build a system that can record video conversations, that can give you a repository where you can actually save them and store them and share them and collaborate on them. And then you apply AI on top of it and get tons of value. But if we went to just like say, hey, you know what, do all of this collaboration, management, review, blah, blah, blah in a different system, and we're just going to provide the AI layer, at some stage, that vendor that does the recording and sharing and collaboration would have come in and said, hey, we have AI models that are good enough and kind of replace us. So I think for almost every company that does AI, I would strongly recommend think about where does the data come from, what is the business process to obtain and sort of distribute the insight and own the whole process. Otherwise, you're going to get very quickly this intermediate.
So, I mean, where do you see Gong going in? I mean, in like 5 years, 10 years, I mean, where do you see it going in terms of the product development or maybe expansion or adding more features to the product? Where do you see?
Yeah. So for us, 10 years is a lot of time. I can't think that far into the future. Maybe at 10 years, we're going to automate salespeople, as you said, maybe it will be automation, but more realistically, the idea is leveraging the core concept of a reality platform, which means we process information, we understand it, and so on. We're applying it to more and more areas of the revenue profession. So, whereas next year we're going to launch a product that tells a salesperson who they should reach out to when, and here's a suggestion for what to write. We're going to launch something for people who reach out to prospect and, what do you need to tell them when you prospect and so on. So for us, the key thing for revenue is how do you kind of build a whole end-to-end system where somebody comes in the morning, the system helps them understand what to do and how to do, and sometimes does it for them across all of their functions. So it's the one system that sits on top of a CRM system, which is the system of record in this world, that kind of helps them achieve their day-to-day stuff. And if this works out, there's always other domains. I mean, I think it was April's Fool in 2018 or 19 where we announced Gong for dating. Do the same for your dates. But more seriously, you can do it for, I don't know, recruiting, internal conversations, project management. There's many other applications to the same business concept.
Awesome. So, Eilon, thank you very much for your time today. It was a very nice and productive conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So before we close, any sort of message that you would like to give to the audience about AI adoption or the future of AI?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It was a fun conversation. So I don't have anything like super new to say, but I think maybe one thing we should all kind of be aware of is, first of all, not to be afraid of AI. It's not going to replace us. It's a tool for us to leverage. We should leverage smartly and also at the same time responsibly, because AI could also be used for stuff that is not necessarily ethical. And how do you kind of use systems in a way that kind of brings good to the world is always a good thing.
So Eilon, again, thank you for your time today. And I would love to host you for another deeper dive, maybe the ethical exploration of AI and what some of the main use cases could be in the coming days for our audience, and take it up from there. Again, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you for hosting me.
Thanks. Bye.